Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome to Verde's weekly live talk show. My name is Kristin Carpenter, and I'm your host. I'm also the founder of Verde Brand Communications, the Channel Mastery Podcast, and most recently, my team and I launched the Multi-Channel Marketing Academy, which is an immersive digital product built for brand and business leaders in the specialty spaces, trained specifically to help them create engaging, awesome channel mixes in a nimble way to be remarkable to their end consumers during this incredibly trying time of change that we're in. Let me do a quick tech check. Well, it looks like maybe you can't see me yet. Hold on one sec. Just making sure that my team can see me, so I know you can see me too. All right, it looks like we're good. Sorry about that. This is our first going live from YouTube. We usually go to Facebook. We will be posting this to Verde's Facebook page, but this is new, going live to YouTube, and we're super fired up. I personally love YouTube. I mean, over, I guess, the last couple of years, due to having teenagers, it's become my go-to television, if you will. But since COVID, it has become more of a lifeline to me. I watch YouTube all the time and find myself really wanting more from so many of the content creators that I'm engaged with there and follow there. We wanted to basically represent and show action on what we ask our clients to do, which is more video, more live video specifically. It creates an awesome connection, not only from the brand, but to the audience. And I just love it. So hopefully everything we keep testing and learning is inspiring you and helping you also. To that note, we are here on the live weekly talk show, our very first one. And every week on Monday at 11 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time, we will be posting trends, a very succinct trend report on 3 topics. The first of which will be the evolution of media, influencers, video creators, content creators, etc. And then the second topic will be the evolution of consumer behavior. And the third, the evolution of channel strategy. So I'm going to try and knock all 3 of those out in a half an hour. If we end up going a little bit longer or shorter, that's that. But just so you know, that's what you'll be getting every Monday here on this talk show. And sometimes I'll bring guests on. Sometimes it'll just be a solo cast. Sometimes it'll be super quick. And I also will be doing this from the road sometimes. I have to go up to Bozeman to move my son Tobin into the dorms in the early part of August, so just in a couple weeks, and I'll be broadcasting live from my Tax Outdoors Cricket Overland trailer that my daughter and I are bringing up there to move my son into the dorms he's already up there. Anyway, super excited about that. You'll get to see kind of what that's all about from the road, which I'm really excited about. Okay, so let's jump right into this. I am so fired up. Okay, first we're going to hit on the state of the media. So a couple weeks back, I did a content project with a very dear longtime friend of mine, Doug Schnitzpon, who is the editor of Outdoor Retailer and a very prolific, well-published writer. His amazing wife is Rado Markham, also a good friend of mine. They're just wonderful people that have really done a lot to further the outdoor active lifestyle markets in our communities here. And so I was honored when he reached out to me to talk about the state of the media and how it's changing. I did a similar, not really similar. I mean, I did an additional story for The Voice, and Kristin at Snooze decided to run that early. You can find that at snoozenet.com, or sorry, snooze.net. I will get this right. Anyway, everything that I say in this live will be part of a blog that we're posting tomorrow, ultimately wrapping up any kind of links or things that I reference in here, and also giving you a heads up on what Verde's content will be for the week, including the Channel Mastery podcast. So if I do butcher any links, just know you can pop over to verdepr.com or channelmastery.com and pick them up right there. But the story that I did with Doug, it turned out to be a print interview, as print, meaning it was in their digital publication, as well as on their weekly chat. And I'm almost positive we're going to be repurposing the weekly chat that I did with Doug and Sarah over from Outdoor Retailer on the kind of the state of the media, really kind of, I guess, how media institutions really need to evolve right now to make sure that they're garnering the attention and the mind share and the hearts, frankly, of their followers and fans and audience. The article was titled "The Battle for Trust, Attention, and Engagement. This battle is fiercer than ever." Obviously, we founded the podcast Channel Mastery here at Verde because we wanted to help brands position themselves better in that, quote, battle for attention. And I just want to let you know that I did publish that piece with Doug, as well as the weekly chat for Outdoor Retailer, which we will be, I'm almost positive, repurposing this week, the week of July 20th, on the Channel Mastery podcast. And we also might have some highlights from that on the YouTube channel here because it already is in video form. So the high points around that article, basically, I am a former journalist. For those of you who don't know, I was a journalist for 10 years prior to founding Verde. I have such an amazing soft spot for journalists, for media, especially entrepreneurial outlets. And that usually means influencers. I know they're incredibly entrepreneurial and pioneering in terms of creating demand today, as well as YouTube content creators and content creators in general. So I basically kind of approached this article with Doug to talk about the institution of journalism, meaning in our spaces, like some of the more established mastheads, Backpacker, Outside Magazine, even Gearcaster, like Adventure Journal. There's so many stalwart, very established, proven, trusted institutional names in outdoor journalism, outdoor media, or specialty media. They are still incredibly important, especially in this era of robo reviews and fake reviews, etc. However, they need to quickly evolve so that they are appealing to today's audiences in a way that the audience is being trained to expect. Here we are on YouTube. You're looking at me. You're not reading about like Verde and what Verde thinks. You're learning about what I think as the founder of Verde. I think that so many people are attached to their favorite content creators, and they tune into the person and the community more than they tune into a masthead today. And that's really what the bulk of that interview was about, as well as offering some tips in terms of how to evolve your publication and how to stay super relevant to a target consumer that you're trying to educate and endear. That's what all of us are trying to do. Media is incredibly important for that. It's obviously purchase validation. There's a sense of permission. There's definitely community around media. But people today and audiences are looking for something more that they can join up with and a person they can relate to. And oftentimes a byline does not give that same connection. So that's basically the takeaway of the article that I did with Doug. So go Bobcats, MSU, my son being a freshman there. Okay. Ooh, that's good coffee. All right. So that is kind of what's on deck with that. So this week in the Channel Mastery podcast, you'll get to hear and see, I believe, the weekly chat I did with Doug on this topic, and we went into great detail on it. There's a ton of great takeaways. We'll probably make that a concise little blog post, but not until probably late this week or early next week, because we have a lot of content on the docket with this new show launching, etc. Okay. That kind of fills the what's going on with the evolution of media bucket for the week. Now let's hop on to the state of consumer behavior. So I have to tell you, I am a total nerd about this topic. Since we have really settled into COVID, the pandemic, the recession, everything that our country is going through right now in 2020 and continues to go through, I have become even more obsessed with following what is working to engage our consumer today on an emotional level, because everything we do at Verde and Channel Mastery and the Academy now has to do with getting specialty brands and specialty brand leaders just ready to compete with the huge forces that are creating training, if you will, among these consumers or shoppers that we're trying to endear and enroll in our brands. They are getting trained by Amazon, Target, Nordstrom's, Warby Parker, Glossier, like some very savvy, very big, data-driven marketplaces and retail outlets and brands, if you will, that have a retail component and a content component. So everything is becoming, the stakes are getting a lot higher, and our consumer is becoming trained more and more every day prior to COVID from all of these forces. throw COVID into the mix, and we're going to go over the some of the more lasting trends that we're seeing mid-year 2020 shaping the consumer. And know that I will be producing a longer form show on this very topic for Verde's COVID-19 special resources that we produce. So we'll probably have 2 shows coming out this week, just so you know. One will be the weekly chat with Doug Schnitzpon, repurposing that podcast on the state of the media changing. I also will be compiling all of the research that my team and I has pulled together and I synthesized and made relevant to specialty. I'm going to do that as a separate podcast with best practices around communicating. So look for that later this week or early next week, but probably later this week because I've got it all ready to go here. I just need to record it. So obviously COVID has been an absolutely generation shaping event. And all of the links that I'll be pulling this, that I've pulled this data from will be in the blog post about this weekly live. And there are a lot of them in here. There are some that I may not get to that are going to be interesting for you to read, but know that we will prioritize those that I base the bulk of this reporting and trends on in the top part of that part of the blog. So 5 key themes have really emerged that will most likely stick in terms of how consumers are evolving. Some of them are they're pretty far reaching, pretty impactful. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. This is from UC Davis, which is my alma mater. Basically, one of the professors did an interview with Forbes. I have obviously the link, it will be in the blog post. But first and foremost is obviously the flight to online. Okay, so COVID has accelerated what was expected to be a multi-year shift in consumer behavior to more online to a matter of months. And all of us are consumers, in addition to business leaders and brand leaders. We all are experiencing this ourselves. Okay, like what we're doing right now is almost a byproduct of that, right? The number of consumers who now use digital channels to access goods, services, and content across categories and expect to do so in the future has increased by an average of 25% or more. And there is no surprise there. We all know that. My point in bringing this up to you is mid-year, July 2020. This is most certainly still a growing trend. It is something our businesses must adapt to. And it is something that consumers will not be stepping away from as we consider getting closer or potentially get closer to a recovery. Obviously, right now, middle of June or the 20th of July, 2020, we are experiencing another spike in COVID. And so it's important to note that we have a long road to recovery ahead. And what we're experiencing now, we need to pull from everything we've learned, the good, bad, and the ugly, in the past 4 to 5 months, going through the onslaught and the first lockdown of COVID, and make it work for our businesses. Do more of what worked and less of what didn't. But keep in mind, your consumer is going to still be tethered to their browser. Everything you can do to serve them, be remarkable to them, give them an experience through their browsers, virtually, digitally, whatever you call it, is still super important to do. Here's another one that I thought was really, really key: shock to loyalty. As consumers struggle with limited access and availability, brand loyalties are being challenged. 40 to 50% of consumers have shifted stores, websites, or brands during the crisis, 20% switching primary stores or brands. More than half say they plan to stick with the new store or brand. Part of that is just us being busy. Part of it is us being normal, open to being introduced to a different normal day to day. But the takeaway here is there's 2 things going on. There are things that are changing out there in the world in our day-to-day. We have to find solutions. When those solutions work, we stick with them, especially when things are just in disarray and we don't have like a routine per se. I also feel it's important as specialty brands that we consider the importance of the cause that we stand for ethically in our brand as we're looking at this shock to loyalty, because we also have seen in the Edelman survey that came out in March and follow-up surveys since then, consumers are also voting with their dollars and trying to align with brands that stand for what they want to see change in the world or their ethics. They are voting for that with brands that they are hoping will carry that torch for them, because their government institutions have not been successful doing that in their mind. They are falling short of the consumer expectation. We're in an election year. There's a lot out there that everybody, I don't care about, your political stance, everybody has change that they want to see in the world right now. And the brands that take on that mantle of responsibility and truly start to develop and live a cause that consumers can align with, a cause that is authentic, not something that you think you want to adopt because consumers will align with it, but something that is really important to your workforce and for what you stand for, is also super important to this new dynamic of loyalty shifting that's happening with consumers. Super important. We are creatures of habit. Our brains are literally wired to choose the easiest thing to do again and again as humans. Like the less amount of calories we use to think and go about our day, the more successful part of our brain thinks we are. That primal reptilian part of our brain that we all have. So just know that as consumers are open to trying new things and discovering new brands, they are going to end up keeping the brands that meet their need, either with a cause or an ethical alignment or a frictionless approach, or a way that they feel that something was offered to them that really kind of hit a home run during a time when they were really needing it because of COVID. That's a big opportunity. It's also something to be wary of because you want to be super on your game when it comes to fulfillment, when it comes to consistency and follow through and being responsive to things that you see your consumers saying about you online. So okay, the next one is a need for hygiene transparency. So with a lot of the SIA town halls that I've been privileged to help with, and some of the other content that we've been doing for COVID at Verde, some of the other panels and different things, the hygiene transparency is something that we've all seen coming. At the time we were doing a lot of these webinars and panels, we hadn't reopened retail. Now we have a few months under our belt. We're starting to see certain regions of the country open and then close again, or businesses opening and closing. And I know everybody has an opinion on all of that. We're not here to discuss the opinion part of it. What we're here to discuss is consumers need and expect a communication from a company before they have an experience, before they engage with them, about what the experience is going to be like, how safe will they be, okay? Before COVID hit, a lot of consumers were already discovering buy online, pick up in store, curbside pickup, delivery, grocery, and they were seeing the conveniences and the frictionless approach of that. And with COVID and being in kind of self-quarantine in their homes and experiencing getting everything you need at Walmart top to bottom in one trip or have it delivered, etc., consumers are not going to want to give that up, number one. Number two, they are not going to want to give up transparency into seeing how your business is making things safe for them, safe to transact with you, safe to shop with you, etc. Hyper awareness of safety concerns has consumers demanding to limit contact at as many points in the consumer journey as possible. This is not new, of course, but now we have a lot that we can look at and study that has happened in terms of things that have opened successfully and not successfully. So my point in sharing this one is make sure that you're eyes wide open, that you're having conversations with people who you trust, who are close with you, or within your company about what's working and what isn't in terms of keeping consumers up to speed, aware, and safe. I just recorded a podcast with Ryan Etrium, who is a member of the Channel Mastery Marketing Academy Cohort 1. He is a leader over at Wintersteiger and Hottronics, and he basically, his company pulled together a fantastic report on retail and rental safety for winter sports. So when that podcast, that Channel Mastery podcast hits, we will have those free resources for you in the blog for that episode. Going forward, we're not doing show notes, we're doing a blog going forward. You can find that at verdepr.com/blog or the channelmastery.com website. So just know that we have that coming, and that is a great resource for hygiene transparency. The stat here is 75% of self-checkout users and more than 60% of buy online, pick up in store users will continue to use those services post-crisis. I don't think there's any surprise there, but it's important to know that as things kind of vacillate between normalizing and going back into a spike and all of the middle of that, this is something that will not change. So that is a constant. We know that consumers are going to want to and expect that going forward. Consumers will also experience a return to essentials and value. So the basket composition has shifted toward essentials and value over impulse buying. Again, this is also not new. What I'm saying is this will go forward as a continued trend with consumers. More than 60% of consumers expect to reduce spending on non-essential categories. Thankfully, in my company's core home markets of the outdoor active lifestyle industry, we are, I think, considered to be essential. So many people during lockdown discovered how healing and peaceful and how great the outdoors was for them and their families wellness-wise. They discovered the same thing about pets. A lot of the amazing specialty industries that really create like a self-identity with their consumers are seeing an increase in participation and some in sales because they are helping people identify and be part of a community and find a way forward that feels good to them from like a healing and just balancing all of the change and difficulty with COVID in their, as they try to build a routine in their day-to-day life. And we want to make sure that they continue moving forward with considering us to be essential in outdoor, in pet, etc. Like, and the way that we can do this is by opening our arms to them, being as inclusive as possible, and being super mindful of our messaging to them and our tone, and really just enabling them to see that they do belong in these worlds. We want them here year round. It's exceptionally healthy for all of us, I think, to hit the reset button by being outdoors. That's another thing that I just wanted to say. The return to essentials and value, of course, has to do with less impulse buying, maybe less luxury items. But thankfully, people are seeing health and wellness, and the outdoors definitely is part of that as part of an essential and a part of their value. It may not be like cited everywhere, but I think every single one of us in these markets is seeing and experiencing this right now, and we all see that it's a huge opportunity to caretake. All right. And kind of going hand in hand with that is the last one, the rise of home as the center of life. Staying at home has driven a rise in the domestic arts. I'm not so good at these. Cooking and at-home entertainment. More than 40% of consumers expect to spend more time cooking over the next couple of weeks and months, even as we are many months into social distancing measures. So it kind of enabled us to reconnect with the home base. And I do know that camping and RVing specifically can be seen as an extension of that for sure. So I think that we're all just deciding like I might be able to get a little bit more freedom. I definitely feel better when I'm outside. I'm going to start incorporating more camping trips, etc. Just be super careful and cognizant that you're looking at what's safe in the destination that you're trying to get to in terms of, being out in public. I think pretty much the entire country is back in masks, but there may be more on the horizon from what I've been reading. Okay, so those are 5 key trends that we definitely see, continuing even beyond, the recession and the recovery from COVID. Okay, a couple things that I wanted to close up with before we get wrapped up with today's live show. How does this pertain to channels and our mix of channels and how we optimize those channels so that our target consumers can, we can just be discovered by them. They can join up with our brand. They feel great sharing and engaging with our content, and ultimately maybe they convert, right? What we can do as specialty brands and retailers is drive traffic to online and omni-channel channels. We have to be present at the channel that our target consumer or shopper prefers. Period, the end. And you need to get the research done and update that target consumer or shopper profile to understand exactly what their preferred channels are. They very much could have changed during COVID. So if you have an outdated version of this, say you've done a brand deep dive even as recently as December of 2019, you're going to want to revisit it. You're going to want to look at your target consumers and your target avatar, especially as we're migrating through the incredibly important work at hand of ensuring diversity, equity, and inclusion. Very, very important to do. So not only will you be able to update and use your brand as a vehicle and retail shop as a vehicle for positive change by creating those updated avatars and starting to cater to them in terms of enabling those people to see themselves in your brand experience or outdoors, etc. You're also going to understand what channels they prefer to hear from you on, how they are discovering and sharing content, and how they want to and why they want to join up with your brand. So all of this is super, super important as things continue to shift with COVID. So I also think the last big takeaway, no matter what channel you're on, you want to make sure that you're communicating very strongly with your consumers or your shoppers about fulfillment issues. Be honest with them, be transparent, let them know what's going on. If they've ordered something and it's going to be late, tell them. You can share that you're not happy about it, there are things out of your control, etc. Point being is going back to episode 124 of Channel Mastery, which was the kickoff COVID-19 content that Verde started to put together, and we've since done 15 shows, I believe, and several more blog posts at verdepr.com/resources. You want to be communicating more than less with close external stakeholders, such as your shoppers. And this is the case because of COVID, because of how your business will continue to need to evolve with COVID and news around your regions of focus. Maybe it's national, so it makes it more challenging, but geo-targeting or micro-focus on regions, communication-wise, using people in those regions, or just, delineating your digital tools and strategy to ensure that you're communicating correctly to regions that are open or not with COVID. My point is, take the steps right now so that you have a system and process in place to consistently communicate with your internal workforce and your close external stakeholders, such as brands you do business with, reps, and of course your end consumer. They are the North Star. Okay, I think that that's pretty much what the wrap up is for you today. We're right here at the top of the half hour. It's 11:30, and I have a lot more to share with consumer behavior shifts that I will be producing in a podcast, as well as I have a very awesome podcast that I'm recording later today with David Howell of Howell and Associates. David did a podcast with me as part of our 3P content last fall. Maybe it was 2 falls ago. I think it was fall 2018. That can't be right. Anyway, he's coming back for an encore. He's going to give us an update on marketplaces, including Etsy, eBay, etc. There's all kinds of shifts and change happening as Amazon's algorithm and Amazon's prioritization as the everything store continues to be taxed by COVID. People are really experiencing a different experience of Prime because of how backed up everything is at Amazon. And that reminds me, I have to say one more quick thing. And I will definitely be talking about this more in the Channel Mastery podcast. But I did read in Forbes, and I'll put the link, that Walmart is launching, I guess it's like a Prime competitor, so some sort of a subscription to its end users. So I'm very excited to dive into that. I've got a great resource here from Chris Walton, one of our absolute Channel Mastery family favorites, one of the principals over at omnitalk.blog. So please tune into our podcast. Check out our blog at channelmastery.com and verdepr.com. Channelmastery.com also has all of the ways in the world for you to listen to Channel Mastery. You can also watch it here on YouTube. We'll have some clips and links here. We are trying to grow our YouTube channel, so make sure that you hit the bell and subscribe to our new weekly live show here at Verde Brand Communications. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you next Monday. Take care.